Katarina, it's a pleasure to have you and to have you share your story about how you use trauma to empower yourself during a challenging time in your life. So, thank you also to all those who will be listening to Katarina's voice. And I'd like to inform everyone that she forms part of our group of madrinas. And those are women who you could speak to when you need support with a challenging issue in your life. And Katarina is going to be supporting um, uh, women or members who have gone through a trauma, and she will be there for you. So, Katarina, can you speak to us a little bit about the methods that you used when you had a traumatic challenge in your life?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be part of the support team of the Latina Voice. I have a story as every human being, I guess. We all have certain experiences in life that we go through. And my childhood was affected by alcoholism and moving a lot around, unstable kind of, as we like to call it today, dysfunctional families. Here's the one. And later on, I had some challenges, health challenges in my late 20s, which actually was the final piece of the journey that put me on this another chapter in my life of actually approaching um, to the healing, to the therapy as a client, and later on developing actually into therapist myself, although that was not initial intention. So the methods I use is actually the ones that I was called to be part of in a program. Well, first one was 2004 to 2008, the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, where is actually very embodied approach to the energy healing and studying of the energy and consciousness systems that we all form. After that, I went to psychoenergetics. There is a body-oriented psychotherapy, a facilitation of the process, and continue with the somatic experiencing that I graduated in 2018. It's a resolution of the trauma. Actually, it's approach to the resolution of the trauma, not just through talking and the story, which has its place, it's important, but also through the body and our nervous system, because trauma is a physiological event, not just psychological. And then also I'm bridged over to the shame therapy, because shame is a very complex emotion that actually physiologically corresponds to the trauma, in a sense that we find ourselves in a frozen state or that shame posture. So my own personal work has been guided me in adding new tools also to offer clients and to offer other people.
So how did using, let's say, Brennan empower you when you were going through your traumatic challenge?
The Brennan School, although is specifically oriented to the energy healings, about 70% of that work or studying there, which lasts for 4 years, it's about work on yourself and actually diving deep into your wound or becoming conscious of what's the defense mechanism that is operating. And we are so identified with it, so we just think it's me. But it's not necessarily like that. We get into emotional reactions and overreact many times because of a certain experiences we have had, and our nervous system recognizes somehow the danger that through the senses it's not even it's not there. We don't perceive it, but our brain does perceive it with the neuroception. It's another um, word that was coined by Stephen Porges. With the Brennan was the first actually dive into the trauma that was there in my life and my wound that I never really addressed. I thought that my parent issues were over once I got out of home and I don't need to bother about it anymore. That's past. But actually, after the surgery, it was a brain surgery, I was actually got really to stop in my life on a crossroad and see the way I was living and the values I was living for. And, you know, this kind of experiences really change the course of your life. So that took me to Brennan. It was the first time that actually I realized that those issues that I had from the past are still sitting there, all unresolved emotions. Just me not looking at them or not facing the issues didn't make them go away. The physical emotional experience of the brain surgery, here they're back in front of me, and here I was again with issues from the past. And that's why the energy work goes perfectly with work on yourself, because there is a change of consciousness that needs to happen in order also for the energy work to be more profound and permanent. Because we can go for healing and people can help us, but remember that the consciousness is the one that creates health or well-being and imbalance too. So once there is no change in the consciousness, the energy work can be effective for some time, but then again, that erroneous way of thinking or feeling or belief systems will actually create some other imbalance, if not the same. So having these two together, it's really actually quite a good approach.
So I just wanted to share it with you because it's something popped up in my mind with, let's say, with abused women, and that is traumatic, right? So that when you say consciousness, how would you help a woman who comes to you saying, "Okay, I've been abused, and I repeatedly go back to my husband and my family, and I'm abused again." How does that reflect on all these, these methods of healing?
They say that the lessons keep repeating in life until they're learned. So if we have an issue about ending up in relationships that don't seem initially abusive, but end up being abusive, be it physically, emotional, verbal abuse, you know, there is again a place we need to go back inside and see on one of the first place, where am I actually unconsciously abusing myself? It could be that I don't give myself what I need when I need it. Like I need a rest and I don't take a rest, but I keep pushing myself until the body breaks. Or it could be that I have a belief that I'm not good enough and I'm not pretty enough, or I don't deserve certain things. And these beliefs operate many times unconsciously. So we end up in things that we don't really want on the conscious level. And again, it's about awakening of the consciousness and looking deep inside. What's happening is inside of me that I'm ending up in this vicious cycle. This is not to say that, oh, you are guilty because you are abused. That's not the point. We just want to awaken that part of me that is disconnected, that is feeling helpless. And we don't actually give it a certain value. We don't give ourselves, we don't believe that we are worth it, that we are good enough, that we deserve a good life, and we are worth of love. I can give an example if you want. I felt abandoned because my father was not interested in visiting. They were divorced before I was even born. And there is this message of the environment that always comes that since he's not paying attention to me, I'm not worth it. And consciously addressing that through the work on the wound of abandonment or the trauma that happened, or, you know, then I can actually start collecting more parts of myself and the sense of self. I can come back home. The other belief systems and other values and my own feelings towards myself can live in my body rather than feelings of other people that we actually adopted during childhood.
How do I believe that I am worth finding help and healing myself.
Dissociation, denial, anger, and attacking other, it's also a part of the defensive mechanisms. Withdrawal is another type of, that's why if somebody withdraws, I'm like, okay, I'm a little, I'll just let me survive like this little. I'm not going to speak, I'm not going to stand for myself because it's dangerous. As children, we might have been punished. Denial it's going to be there for a while, but it's not a permanent solution, because the chaos in our life, so crises that arise, become too strong, too intense, that we just have to come out of that denial at some point. In my case, they had to drill my skull in order to figure out some stuff with the brain surgery. So I hope, not many people have to go through that extreme. Basically, things happen in life, and life knows how to bring us down into life in a way, knows how to teach us.
You could talk to us a little bit about us putting ourselves in those situations, maybe for protection, maybe not wanting to continue being hurt or continue with the trauma.
The defense mechanisms serve that purpose, to protect the wound, to protect our pain, so we don't live it again. Mm-hmm. And that's the purpose of the defensive mechanism. So many times when I work with people, I tell them in the workshops, there's no bad or good emotions or negative emotions or negative things you're doing. This defense mechanism was a blessing, and it protected us to survive in a certain circumstances in life, because there was no other choice. As a child, you cannot divorce your parents, go find a job, move out and live your life. You just have to stay there. Mm-hmm. And that was the best we could have done with these different mechanisms in order to survive. We have a choice, actually. We're not forced to be in a certain situation. But our experience and belief system that, strengthen itself during a lifetime and different experiences, we actually believe that that's the situation, that's the only way it can be. So as adults, we kind of need to a little bit expand our consciousness and see there's another way of living life, that we can create what we want here. We are not doomed to repeat the same thing all over again. But the main point here is that defense mechanism that is there in place to protect the wound is actually something we need to go through and come to this pain, release this pain. And that's why we sometimes think, I'm going to die if I release it all, because it's just so much, it's going to overwhelm me. So that's why this gradual work is important, because once you go through your wound, your gift is coming out. That's going to become your strength, not your weakness. And that's the beauty of this transformational work. And to seeing, actually, that's how we are coming to our power, really connecting to the strength in the wound and coming out on the other side. So now we can talk and help people who, let's say, had the car accident, had the bad marriages, had abusive parents, or had alcoholism, because we have lived that. And we see how the process works and how you can actually connect back to your power.
And it's not only the intellectual, but also your own journey that brings that out. And because you're able to relate because you went through it.
You can relate, so it's a lived, it's a living. So that's why many people sometimes ask me, the therapy, what can I do now for myself? Okay, and yeah, you can do these and meditations and some exercises to increase your grounding. But basically this work needs another sacred witness, needs another person that we can relate to. And the contact is one that actually heals the most. Mm-hmm. Because now you're finally in a contact that is supportive, that is recognizing your boundaries, that is recognizing your gifts and essence, your strength, and supporting you there, which many of us lacked in our life, you know.
Would you recommend meditation for someone who you work with as being an instrument to get in touch with that higher self, get in touch with your inner child?
Yeah, it has its place, but also many breakthrough things happen to me while doing the dishes, you know, so that's also a meditative process. Cooking is a meditative process. The point is the consciousness again. The point of the place, the moment of self-realization actually, and coming back home to the self starts with slowing down and paying attention. Meditation, like if there is a very traumatized person who has a hard time staying in the body, like I wouldn't really go for a meditation much, because that would take them more out of the body. Right? So it all depends on the person and the stage they're in. And of course, if that's something that is helping, again, I said, like, depends on the type of the time, the person, the place where the person is in their life, and what kind of a meditation or chanting they're called. But definitely all this work, just going into the wound and digging out things, it's not end in itself. And you're right, there is a spiritual part that we are actually really going back home, but now we are embodied spirit. So it's about expanding consciousness in this body and including more and more, not going out of the body. In a sense of spirituality is always seen as going out, up there is a heaven, or there is this or that. But it's about spherical expansion of the consciousness, about 360 degrees. And more you expand it, more you include, be it a physical matter, be it a spirit, in your consciousness. Once we start actually gently, sometimes more gentle, sometimes it's kind of more, you know, cathartic, but we start pushing against those limits. The consciousness wants more, doesn't want to stay so little. So it wants to evolve, it wants to expand, and it wants pleasure. That's the one of the main qualities of humans, you know. It's a pleasurable life. It's something that charges you, you know. It's not just a pain and fear. So once we start working with this, more life force is being not frozen, unfreezes, or releases the pain or releases the anger, and comes back to that river of life that can, more of our energy can actually create a life we want. So that automatically, you see, as we go into that contracted places in us of freeze or pain or fear, we actually start expanding that inside of our bodies and around our bodies in our energy field. It automatically brings expansion.
There are different kinds of tools, instruments that we can use to be able to get to that level where you're getting close to being in touch with yourself, right? And one of the ones that I could think of, one was meditation, the other one was affirmations, and the other one is writing. Do you see those as effective for women who have gone through trauma and are beginning their journey into finding themselves or finding that trauma to be able to heal it?
Yeah, actually, every kind of a creative process, as it's writing, as it's drawing, as it's planting the garden, as it's like taking a photographs or painting or anything that was creative, whatever your channel of creativity is, it's definitely a place where your life force still flows freely. It's not blocked in any way. And you definitely want to, it's your resource. And you want to keep strengthening that resource. So if it's writing, then definitely it's also has an aspect of self-reflection. Once you put it out of your mind on the paper, or you draw it or write it, or how whatever you're using as your tool, it's just kind of, it's something outside of you, and you can actually observe it more as a witness, you know, not only identified with the thought or emotion, because this is just part of us. Trauma is not all of us, it's just part of us. That can feel so overwhelming that it spills all over us and we just feel helpless. That's one of the symptoms of trauma, being helpless. Affirmations have their place, but I would say in my work, they have more meaning if they are done once the work is done. Some work is done. Because if I overwhelmingly feel, let's say, unworthy, no matter what affirmation I repeat, it's just going to be mechanic and robotic. At least in my experience was like that. But once I went through some of this pain, and I actually, through my own experience, touched to this place of my power or my worth, even maybe for a millisecond, then these affirmations would help me, remind me on that every day. And then it could be more embodied, not just mental and verbal repetition, but actually could have been more as a felt sense and embodied. And they help me actually kind of as a reminder of my true self.
It's so interesting. We could go on forever.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that like sometimes you say, oh, I'm fine, I don't need therapy, because I hear many people, even myself at times, I have said, you know, even though I have done therapy and continue doing therapy, I say to myself, I don't need therapy. But then you realize that something triggers that pain or that wound inside of you, and it throws you completely off. And that's where you say, wait a minute, something is there that I have not dealt with. It's very revealing. A simple action or a word or a song, even. Getting back to the creative process, one of the things that happens when we're in our creative process is that we leave the mind and we connect with our higher self. There's no thinking at that point. You are doing, is that correct?
Mind can take us like in a moment to another part of the world or a childhood, the things that even the house that doesn't exist anymore, it's very alive in the memory. But once these things get aligned, that are actually are present in the body and the mind and the longing and the purpose of the soul, you know, then you're aligned with your own purpose and the source and the earth, and you know your place, and then it comes to the point of effortless manifestation and creation. You know, so yeah, the mind has its function in there, and the body has its role, because we need it in order to materialize our longing and what we came to create and share with the world in this lifetime. But they all work together, synchronized. There is a coherence of the energy field. And of course, that doesn't mean that, you know, there won't be obstacles or difficulties on the way, but those difficulties strengthen us, and kind of through them, we realize even more how this is the purpose. It kind of confirms us in a way, and the purpose, it pulls out more strength of our spirit and the whole being. We need everything. We
Yes.
just might need a little bit of transformation here, there, a little bit of touch. We're not broken. We are not lost. We are not totally like useless. We just need a little bit of alignment, attunement, and we create a beautiful things in this world.
What do you recommend for our audience as a therapist, a person who has gone through trauma and has healed and has also used it as empowerment?
We are actually walking this path. It's a map of recognizing, of becoming aware of what we are not, and actually coming to our true essence, to our core. And going through the pain and the trauma will bring you to your strength, to your core, to your power, inner power. that you can actually create in this world what you came for. So don't be afraid of the process, especially once you have a good support system in your community and at least a one friend or one therapist you can trust. You know, the miracles will definitely happen as a support system. So
Thank you,
I
Madrina.
hope that we can be a good support system through Latina Voice to all ladies and everybody else who wants to actually awaken to their own strength and power and their core.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your empowering story. I want to remind everyone that you have a madrina at Latina Voice. Just get access to her whenever you have a challenging trauma. Thanks again, madrina.
Thank you.